The snow fell softly that December evening as Margaret sat alone on the park bench. At 58 years old, she had built an empire from nothing. Her company employed thousands. Her name appeared in business magazines. But tonight, none of that mattered. She pressed a trembling hand to her lips, trying to hold back the tears. The Christmas lights on the tree before her blurred into golden streams. 20 years. 20 years since she had lost her daughter Emily in that terrible accident. Every Christmas brought the pain rushing back like a wave that never quite receded. Margaret had thrown herself into work after the loss. She built walls around her heart, brick by brick, meeting by meeting. Her husband couldn't bear the silence between them and left 5 years ago. Now she had everything the world said mattered, and nothing that actually did. A small voice interrupted her grief. "Why are you crying, miss?" Margaret looked down to see a little girl, maybe 6 years old, standing before her. She wore a pink puffy jacket and a white knitted hat with bare ears. Her mittened hands clutched a paper shopping bag. Behind her, snow continued its gentle descent. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Margaret said, quickly wiping her eyes. "I'm fine. Where are your parents?" The girl tilted her head, studying Margaret with the intense curiosity only children possess. "My dad is over there." She pointed to a man in a black coat, walking slowly toward them. "But you don't look fine. You look like you need a hug." Margaret felt something crack inside her chest. When was the last time someone had offered her such simple kindness? "That's very sweet of you," Margaret whispered. The little girl stepped closer. "My name is Sophie. What's yours?" "Margaret." "That's a pretty name. My grandma was named Margaret." Sophie swung her shopping bag gently. "Are you sad because it's Christmas?" Margaret nodded slowly. "Yes. I lost someone very special a long time ago. Christmas reminded me of her." Sophie's face grew serious beyond her years. "My mom died 2 years ago," she said simply. "Daddy says she's a star now. We look for her every night." The words hit Margaret like a physical blow. This child understood loss in a way most adults never would. The man in the black coat reached them. He was perhaps 40, with kind eyes and an apologetic smile. "Sophie, you can't just run up to strangers," he said gently, then noticed Margaret's tear-stained face. "I'm so sorry. My daughter has a habit of adopting people." "No, please," Margaret said. "She's wonderful." Sophie tugged on her father's coat. "Daddy, this is Margaret. She's sad because she lost someone at Christmas too, just like us with Mommy." The man's expression softened with understanding. He extended his hand. "I'm David. Please excuse my daughter's directness." Margaret shook his hand. "Honestly, it's the most human interaction I've had in months." Sophie suddenly brightened. "I have an idea. Daddy, Margaret is sitting alone on Christmas. That's not right. Can she borrow you? Just for tonight?" David looked embarrassed, but Margaret found herself laughing through her tears. It was the first genuine laugh she'd had in years. "What Sophie means," David said carefully, "is that we're heading to the Christmas market for hot chocolate and to look at lights. You're welcome to join us if you'd like. No one should be alone on Christmas Eve." Margaret hesitated. Every instinct she developed over 20 years told her to decline, to return to her empty penthouse, to maintain her carefully constructed isolation. But something in Sophie's hopeful face stopped her. "I would like that very much," she heard herself say. Sophie grabbed Margaret's hand with her small mittened one. "Come on. The best hot chocolate is by the big carousel." As they walked through the snowy park toward the market, Sophie chattered about everything and nothing. Her favorite color was purple. She wanted a puppy, but Daddy said their apartment was too small. She was learning to read chapter books. Her mother used to make the best sugar cookies. Margaret listened, really listened, in a way she hadn't in years. David walked on Sophie's other side, occasionally meeting Margaret's eyes with a small smile that said he understood how overwhelming his daughter could be. At the market, the lights were magical. Strands of bulbs crisscrossed overhead like stars brought down to earth. The smell of roasted chestnuts and cinnamon filled the air. Children laughed and ran between the stalls while Christmas carols played softly from hidden speakers. David bought 3 hot chocolates topped with whipped cream. They found a quieter spot near a wooden fence decorated with pine garlands and red ribbons. "So, Margaret," David said, "Sophie mentioned you lost someone. I'm sorry. It never really gets easier, does it?" Margaret wrapped her cold hands around the warm cup. "No. My daughter Emily would have been 38 this year. Car accident. She was 18. David nodded slowly. "My wife, Sarah, was sick for a year before she passed. We had time to say goodbye, which was both a blessing and a curse. Sophie was only 4. Sometimes I worry she'll forget her mother's voice." "She won't," Margaret said with certainty. "Love doesn't forget." Sophie, who had been watching the carousel, suddenly turned to them. "Daddy, can Margaret come have dinner with us tomorrow? We always make too much food anyway." David looked uncomfortable. "Sophie, Margaret probably has her own plans." "Actually," Margaret said quietly, "I don't. I usually work through the holidays." "On Christmas?" Sophie looked horrified. "But that's when families are supposed to be together. I don't really have family anymore, sweetheart." Sophie's expression turned determined. "Then you can share ours. Right, Daddy?" David met Margaret's eyes, and in that moment, 2 people who understood loss recognized each other. "We'd be honored if you join us. Fair warning, though, I'm not the world's best cook. We usually end up with slightly burned turkey and lumpy gravy." Margaret felt tears threatening again, but these were different. "That sounds perfect." They spent another hour at the market. Sophie insisted on showing Margaret every stall, every decoration, every magical corner. She held Margaret's hand the entire time. This little girl who had lost her mother, but somehow still had enough love to share with a stranger. When it was time to part ways, Sophie hugged Margaret tightly around the waist. "Don't be sad anymore, okay? You can borrow my daddy whenever you need to. That's what friends do." Margaret knelt down to Sophie's level, not caring that her expensive coat touched the snowy ground. "Thank you, Sophie. You've given me the best Christmas gift I've received in 20 years. "What's that?" "You reminded me that it's okay to let people in." David wrote his address on a napkin and handed it to Margaret. 2:00 tomorrow. Come early if you want to help with the disaster. That is my cooking." That night, in her penthouse overlooking the city, Margaret didn't work. Instead, she sat by her window watching the snow and thinking about a little girl in a pink jacket and a father who had learned to carry on despite his grief. She thought about Emily, and for the first time in years, the memories brought a smile instead of just tears. The next afternoon, Margaret arrived at David's modest apartment with her arms full of groceries and a stuffed purple puppy for Sophie. She'd stopped at her storage unit that morning and retrieved a box she hadn't opened in 20 years. Emily's recipe book, with her teenage handwriting scrawled in the margins. "I thought maybe we could try my daughter's sugar cookie recipe," she said when David opened the door. "If that's okay." Sophie squealed with delight and pulled Margaret inside. The apartment was small but warm, filled with photographs and Sophie's artwork, and the kind of lived-in comfort Margaret's sterile penthouse lacked. They spent the afternoon cooking together. David's turkey turned out better than advertised, though the gravy was indeed lumpy. Sophie helped Margaret roll out cookie dough, getting flour everywhere and laughing the whole time. They told stories about the people they'd lost, keeping their memories alive through words and laughter and tears. As evening fell, and they sat around David's small table, Margaret looked at this makeshift family she'd stumbled into and felt something shift inside her. The walls she'd built so carefully began to crumble, not all at once, but enough to let in light. "Thank you," she said softly. "Both of you. You've given me hope that it's not too late to start living again." Sophie reached across the table and patted Margaret's hand. "You're welcome. That's what borrowed dads and their daughters are for." Margaret laughed, really laughed, and it felt like coming home. If this story touched your heart, please share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below about a time when unexpected kindness changed your day. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the smallest hands.